Is a minority government good for Canada?
It isn't bad for Canada. It forces people to have more than one thought at the table and avoids an autocracy or a dictatorship. So yeah, I'd actually be in favor of proportional representation. Let the people that sit at the table represent the votes and wishes of the people who vote for them.
I do. I like minority because then there's balances, there's checks, right? So nobody can just do whatever they want kind of thing. They got to work it out. They got to compromise.
On the one hand, majority governments tend to quote unquote get things done because, well, they can. On the other hand, minority governments tend to be a bit more softer and humanistic in their approach a lot of the time, in that they basically have to learn how to cooperate and find more compromise than they would have to otherwise.
I'd feel more comfortable in a majority government if I thought they were on the right track. The current government's kind of tired. You kind of see that they're a little lethargic, that they don't have any new ideas, especially now that we're out of the pandemic and on to new challenges like inflation. So from that point of view, a minority is not a bad idea. We could get things done. I don't have confidence in this government's ability to deliver with a minority parliament, however.
Pluses and minuses.
There are pluses and minuses to it, yeah. I think right now it's probably a good idea. I don't mind it, so for a minority
because it
government,
keeps them in check. And I think
keeps them a little bit
Trudeau
more in
needs
check.
to be kept in check.
In my mind, I don't think it is, because I think I don't think it forces our government to perform any better. I think it just puts us on shaky ground and perhaps doesn't let whatever government it is give them the mandate to do what needs to be done.
I think a minority government is good for Canada because it keeps all the politicians on their toes. Nobody gets to really drive their own particular agenda. But when you have, 90% of the seats controlled by one party, I doubt that it brings as much meaningful debate and to issues. And I think we get a better result when there's negotiation and sometimes compromise.
But I think a minority government is a form of democracy and how it works. Whether or not the actual minority government of today is good for a country or good for Canada is really less an issue to me than the fact it's actually democracy at work. And if you don't like the government that's in and all the people that are upset, by all means have enough of a collective position to vote them out and have a majority. But a minority government is difficult to manage, but it's true democracy. So I don't have a problem with a majority government because it's actually legitimately the will of the people.
I think the checks and balances that come with a minority government can be a good thing. I think, the danger, of course, in that is that you don't have there's not a clear mandate. So, are the government that's elected going to be able to do what they were, gonna enact the platform that they were voted in on? Are they is there going to be too much compromise? But I think generally speaking, it's not a bad thing.
I actually love the idea, in theory, I guess in principle, of a minority government, assuming that the government actually collaborates and cooperates with other parties. I believe a good dose of humility in government, where it's not just we have a mandate and we can do what we will and willy-nilly, abandon election promises. So the idea of a minority government that really has to be clear on what are some common priorities from like-minded parties and what Canadian people want. A perfect world for me is that we forever stay in a minority government situation where they are forced to collaborate consistently. If they want to remain in power for 4 years, that's going to be required of them.
I don't like having minority government in power. I want a government that is quick, efficient, and can get things done.
I don't know if it's really good for Canada or not. I guess there are some plus and cons for any way. I'm glad that in Canada we still have some kind of cooperation between the various levels of government, or the various parties, I should say. Unlike other countries, we're not as divided. So I think it's something very important to keep in mind, to tend the hand to the other side and look at the viewpoint or the opinions of the other side and work together, instead of working together instead of, at odds with each other.
Yeah, I mean, like with a minority government, there's two ways it can go, right? You can either get more perspectives or you can get nothing done. And so I think finding a right balance between the two would be ideal, but at this point, like, since often the two parties are so, like, different, it's not ideal.